Hey everybody, so my name is Karen and I'm an engineer on the Android Frameworks Developer Relations team at Google. And I started at Google about a year and a half ago. And since then, I've been working a lot with the Play Building engineering team to try to make this library a better experience for Android developers. So I'm here today with Nate, one of my colleagues, to talk about how you can master the Play Building library and the best way to use the Play Building library in your Android app to make sure that you get all the features that we're trying to offer you. So to kind of start off, play building actually started a long time ago without even having a library. It was this really complicated thing where you had to create your own ADO file, and then you had to make your own service and your own broadcast server just to communicate with Google Play. So fast forward to today, now we actually have what's called the Play Building Library 3.0. So this is actually the third version of the Play Building Library. And it makes it a lot easier for apps to communicate with the Google Play Store without having to go through the whole process of creating that ADO file, creating that broadcast receiver, creating services. And the best part that makes it the easy is it handles connections and it communicates with Google Play for you. So the Play Building library right now is actually on a 2-year release window where we're going to release a new Play Building library every 2 years. So as you can see in that timeline, every 2 years every year we're going to be releasing a new Play Building library, and every 2 years the Play Building library that's been released previously is going to be deprecated. So the support window for each new library only has about 2 years. So this is something you might want to think about as you're thinking about how to plan for the future in terms of your apps. And I think the important thing to take away from this is that all new apps that you upload to the Play Store has to be using Play Building Library 3.0 by August 2021. And if you have an existing app and you want to update it in the Play Store in the future, it has to be using Play Building Library 3.0 by November 1st, 2021. So if you are still using ADL in order to communicate with the Google Play, or if you're still using an older version of Play Building Library, it's definitely a good time to think about upgrading before the deadline. Otherwise, your apps will not be approved in the Play Store. So taking a step back, I want to talk a little bit about, besides the Play Building library, the whole building system that we have ready for you as Android developers. And this includes 4 separate things that I don't think a lot of people actually are too familiar with. So there's obviously the Play Building library that all Android developers include in their Android project in order to communicate with Google Play. But outside of that, there's actually 3 other very useful and important things for you as tools. So one of them is the Play console. This is where you configure your app and you add products. The other one is the Google Play Developer API, which a lot of people actually don't know what it can do for you. And the last one, which I think is really important that we're going to spend a little bit more time talking about, is the real-time developer notifications. So these are the 4 things we're kind of going to talk about a little bit more in the next few slides. And together, these 4 things is what we're referring to as the whole building system. And this whole system together gives you a platform in order to help you sell digital products in your app. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Play console. So the Play console, you might know it as the place where you upload and update your apps inside for the Play Store. But besides just doing that, it's also where you configure and add digital products, right? This is where you can add one-time products that to let your user buy digital products. This is where you can add subscription products in order to let your users buy those subscription products, but also includes a lot of other advanced configurations besides just those things. So besides being able to add products and upload your app, you're also able to do special configurations such as free trials for subscription for our users or introductory prices. So these are advanced configurations that could really help you gain more users for your app. So the second thing is the Play Building library, which hopefully everybody's a little bit familiar with. So Play Building library, the basic idea is that it helps you connect your Android app to the Google Play. It lets you know what user is logged into Google Play. It lets you query what kind of products they already have. You can query for available products and existing purchases. And it also just helps you handle purchase flows without having to go through the whole process of ADO files, right? If you want to find out more about what it's actually like to work with the Play Building library and the whole flowchart of what it takes from presenting a user for a product to giving the user a product and granting that user that product, we have actually a really good blog post called Working with the Google Play Building Library. And if you're really more interested in how that whole process goes and the whole flow goes, go ahead and check out that Medium post. So I won't go too much into it because we already do have a blog post for it. Third thing that's really important that I don't think a lot of people are too familiar with is the Google Play Developer API. So the Google Play Developer API, it's basically a set of REST APIs to help you communicate with Google Play. And the reason this is really useful is because it's an advanced method for you to query and manage products. So by using this API, you could call these APIs from, since these are REST APIs, you call it from your backend, you call it from your Android app, wherever you think is appropriate. This will let you actually query and manage products directly by communicating with Google Play. So this allows you to do this without having to go through the Play Billing library. And this is really useful for, one, getting the latest up-to-date status of subscriptions. Because if you're just using the Play Billing library, you only know what subscriptions are active and not active for a user, right? You don't quite know if the subscription is on hold or if the subscription is on pause or what kind of payment state the user is in. So by using this API, it really gives you a lot more information about the subscription status for users. Second thing it's really useful for is if you care a lot about not letting users purchase something without paying for it, so fraudulent purchases, having a backend that communicates with the Google Play Developer API allows you to verify these purchases to make sure that users aren't paying for something without actually paying for it. So if you really are worried about fraudulent purchases, working with the Google Play Developer API is the way to go. The last thing that a lot of people don't quite utilize is something called real-time developer notifications. So real-time developer notifications are really useful because if you have this implemented in your backend, you get notifications immediately when the status of a subscription has changed. So if you've worked a little bit with subscriptions in the Play Billing library, you're probably familiar that unlike one-time purchases where the user either has a purchase or doesn't have a purchase, subscriptions are really complicated, right? Because the user might try to subscribe to something, but then a month later, when they're supposed to automatically resubscribe to something, their payment method may fail. So their credit card might have expired. So a subscription could actually be in a lot of different states as opposed to one-time purchases. And being able to know exactly what kind of state a subscription is in is very useful in order for you to, for example, tell the user, hey, you need to update your payment method, or hey, your subscription is about to expire. Do you want to renew it before it expires so you can continue using all the awesome things that you get with the subscription? So real-time developer notifications are what helps you do this kind of stuff. And being able to get these notifications allows your app to kind of react to these different state changes. As you can see on the right-hand side, there's a bunch of different states that the subscription can be in. It could be renewing, it could be canceled, it could be on hold. So these are all different states that are possible for a subscription to be in. And if you're only handling whether the user has a subscription or not, that's totally fine. But if you really want to take advantage of trying to bring back users who may be losing their subscription soon, and you really want to know exactly what kind of state a subscription is in, you really have to implement real-time developer notifications. The con of this is implementing real-time developer notifications does require you to have a backend to actually receive these notifications. So if you just have an Android app and you don't quite have a backend to communicate, then it might be a little bit harder to set up real-time developer notifications. So some of the common challenges that I've kind of noticed recently based on some of the issues that come on GitHub and Stack Overflow. One, kind of what we touched on before, is people have a very difficult time managing subscriptions and their states because, as you saw in the previous slide, a subscription can be in all these different states, right? It's not just whether the user has a product or they don't have a product. They could have a subscription, but they could be on hold because their payment method failed. So the way to kind of go about that is really just to use the real-time developer notifications and implement that in your backend. And if you have a backend implementation, you would be able to actually store the state of each subscription in your backend. So unfortunately, the Play Billing library right now does not support that. But if you had your own backend implementation, it would be able to support that. The second thing we see a lot of users or developers kind of questioning about is how do we support purchases on multi-platform? So for example, if a user on Android buys a certain subscription and now they buy an iOS phone, they will not be able to see that same subscription just based on you using the Play Billing library because the Play Billing library doesn't talk to the iOS Play Store or the iOS Store. So in order to support purchases on multiple platforms, so if you want your user to be able to still see their subscription, even if they're on a different kind of device, either it's TV or iOS device, you really do need a backend server to kind of store user IDs along with their subscription statuses. The third one we've heard a lot of complaints about is testing. So because when you're testing, subscriptions expire really fast. I think it's like 5 minutes and 15 minutes. Sometimes people, when they're testing, still see subscriptions being active, even though the 5 minutes or the 15 minutes has passed. And this is due to an issue with the cache that the Play Store kind of keeps around in order to make it more efficient to query the subscription statuses. So this is something the engineering team is actually actively working on, being sure that the cache is actually up to date. So hopefully this testing story will get a little bit easier in the future. But if you're still seeing problems as you're testing out subscriptions and you're trying to implement subscriptions in your Android app, feel free to reach out to us on GitHub or file an issue on our public issue tracker. The last thing that we've seen a lot is because of this requirement to upgrade to the newest play building library, which is 3 right now, there was this kind of discrete change where once you upgrade to play building library 3 or anything after play building library 3, some users were seeing automatic refunds after 72 hours. And the reason for that is because for any play building library 3 and above, you are required to acknowledge purchases. So this is just a one-line code where you acknowledge the purchase and say, okay, acknowledge this purchase. If you have a backend, you might want to acknowledge it in the backend to make sure that there aren't fraudulent purchases. But if you don't acknowledge purchases, then any purchase that the user makes will be refunded after 72 hours. So if you're seeing these weird refunds coming in after 72 hours, it's probably because you're not handling the acknowledgement. And this is a little bit tricky because upgrading from 1.0 play building library 1.0 to 3.0 or 2.0 to 3.0, you won't automatically see this as a compiler error or a build error. You'll only see it when you start seeing a bunch of people getting refunds. So hopefully, as you're upgrading to the newest play building library, you'll be able to acknowledge purchases as well. The last thing I kind of want to talk about a little bit is something that a lot of people maybe don't think about as they're implementing play building library in their app. So gaining and retaining subscribers is a really important thing that we want to help developers be able to do. And these are some of the things that we think could really help you gain and retain subscribers. So one, something you could easily configure in the Play console is offer a free trial introductory price. So before the user has to commit to a month or a whole year of their subscriptions, offer them a free trial of a week or a month just to let them see, hey, what is this subscription going to give them? Let them have a feel for what a subscriber might be able to do. We also do something where we let you offer introductory price. So if a new user is just coming in and just trying out things, maybe you want to give them a lower price for the first time they're subscribing to something. And these are all things you could just configure directly in the Google Play console. So this is not even something you would have to write code to do. The second thing is being able to configure a grace period. So a grace period allows a user to fix their payment method before their subscription renews so that they don't have a pause in their subscription. And in the Play console, you could actually verify that, say, hey, I want to be able to offer users a grace period of 3 weeks. So I don't want to take their subscription status away if they don't pay again for 3 weeks. And I want to be able to remind them in the app to actually fix their payment method. The last thing, which is something we just added recently, is in the Play console, you could actually add something where you describe to your users the benefits of being a subscriber. So one, this really lets the user know exactly what they're paying for. And two, it reminds them, hey, if you are a subscriber, these are the things that would be really beneficial for you. So these are all things you can configure in the Play console and doesn't require any code at all. Lastly, I just kind of want to mention that we did spend a lot of work in the past 6 months revamping the whole play building documentation. So anything you might be wondering about, or anything you want to read more about, be sure to check out the developer.android.com for Google Play Building, because we did spend a lot of time making sure all the materials are up to date and making sure that there is no missing information. And now I'm going to pass it to Nate, who's going to talk a little about Unity.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nate Trost. I'm a developer relations engineer supporting Android gaming. I'm here to talk about using the play building library with Unity. Now, Unity is a multi-platform engine that's been very popular in the mobile space. It's predominantly used for games, but you'll also see it used in augmented reality or other vertical applications involving visualization. Unity, since it's a multi-platform engine, has its own Unity IAP service, which is basically a common denominator API that abstracts in-app purchases. However, because it's multi-platform, sometimes the default platform implementations in Unity can lag behind the current. In the case of Android, we found that Unity IAP has been on idle for a long time, and we want developers to easily be able to use the play building library. Now, Unity is C# based. So if you're going to interface with Java or Kotlin code, there's interface code which you have to write, and it's kind of tedious, and we don't want developers to have to do that. And we also want to be able to support as wide a range of Unity releases as possible. Unity releases on pretty much an annual cadence, but oftentimes developers have are kind of stuck on particular versions because they've built up a lot of infrastructure. So being able to support a wide range of Unity features is very desirable. Next slide, please. So to assist with adoption of the Play Building library for Unity, Google has built a plugin which is available on that GitHub page. Google provides a variety of plugins for Unity, but specifically this is to integrate the Play Building library into the existing Unity IAP system. What this means is that developers who are already using Unity IAP can implement the Play Building library and take advantage of it on their Android versions without having to do any special coding. Now, because Unity IAP is a common denominator, the Google Play Store and the Play Building library does have features which aren't covered by the base API. Fortunately, there's an extension mechanism, and the Play Building library plugin uses that to expose features that you may want to support on your Android version. Now, the Play Building library plugin supports everything from Unity 5.6 to the current 2020 release. So no matter what version of Unity you're using, you should be able to integrate this into your application. And finally, the plugin does include source code. It's not just a precompiled DLL. So if you do want to dig into the details of how it's working under the hood, you can do that. Next slide, please. So as far as the extensions, the things that Google Play and the Play Building library support that you need to use the extension mechanism to use are things like subscription upgrade and downgrade, deferred purchases, restoring purchases on a reinstall, notifying of a subscription price change, and also being able to include obfuscated account or profile ID with your purchase information in case you're doing back-end validation like Caren talked about before, or using some built-in client-side validation that's part of Unity IAP. So these are all things where you wouldn't be using this on a non-Android target, but if you are shipping an Android version of your product, you can take advantage of it pretty easily. Next slide, please. As far as resources, as Caren mentioned, the Google Play billing page on the Android developer site has a lot of information. And there is a Unity-specific page there that includes some basic integration and examples of how some of the extensions work. We do have some new samples coming soon. They aren't quite ready yet, but hopefully before the end of the year. There will be a sample project, a simple Unity game that integrates the Play Billing Library plugin, and that'll be part of the GitHub repository linked earlier. And there will also be a code lab. What Google Code Labs are kind of step-by-step tutorials that walk you through taking a starting project and integrating technology like the Play Billing Library and kind of walk you through the whole process. And that will be available on the Google Code Labs site at codelabsdevelopers.google.com. And again, these should be available for the end of the year. They're just not quite ready yet. And that about wraps up my my part on Unity. So I'll hand this back to Caren.
Yeah, I think that's the end of our presentation, so we can take some questions if there are any. So this question is, how can we test purchases on a debug version? The billing library does not seem to recognize our package name with a debug suffix. Yeah, so I think the way to go about this is instead of building a different package with a debug suffix with a different package name, there's actually ways to upload a version of your app without publishing it to all testers. I don't know if Nate has a better explanation for this, but I also don't know how to send people links. But we do have a page on our developers.android.com for play billing that actually describes exactly how you could test versions of your app and be able to let your test users make fake purchases.
To briefly elaborate on that, there is an internal test track where you upload builds, but there is also just some kind of instant sharing, which is it's a little confusing because it's a similar but slightly different mechanism. And once you do have an upload, an APK or an app bundle uploaded to at least your internal test track, then you can start using the internal sharing and incremental releases without having to go through the internal test track. And that's where you can send links directly to users without them having to go through the Play Store.
Yep, what Nate said. Are there plans to bring coroutine support for the playbuilding library? I think we already do have a call-in extension for the playbuilding library. We are actively working on that to bring more features into that. We are looking into coroutine support. I don't know exactly what the timeline for that is, but like I said before, we are releasing a new version of the playbuilding library every year. So I'm not sure what's coming, what's going to make it to the next release, but we are working on something like this. It's kind of weird not being able to see anybody or talk to anybody. So thanks for putting that comment. All right, I guess we're out of questions. I'm not sure if we kind of just stay here until more questions come in or. If people don't have questions, if you have like comments or suggestions for the playbuilding library, feel free to write that in the Slido as well.
Or about other elements like the Play console. I know we just switched everyone over to the new console. And I'm curious to see how people are finding the new Play console.
What is the reason for releasing a new library every year and forcing upgrades on new and existing apps? I don't have a good answer for this, Nate.
Some of it is just to, again, this isn't intended to be a major burden on developers. The incremental updates of Playbuilding Library 2 to Playbuilding Library 3 were extremely minor and didn't even, I don't think they even required any changes to existing code. As far as making sure that applications are running the latest version of our underlying library, since the Playbuilding library is being included in the application, we want active apps to just be able to stay current. So it's not, we're not going to be asking developers to like, you have to completely rework this API every year. But it is making sure that stuff stays current. I think was probably the easiest way to summarize that.
Someone is about to migrate from the old way of communicating with Google Play to the Playbuilding library. Any tips before following the migration guide? I think the migration guide, we did spend a lot of time actually trying to migrate sample apps to from old version to the new Playbuilding version. So the migration guide should take you through the whole way. I think the important thing, like I mentioned before, is just to make sure you acknowledge purchases, because that's probably the thing that's hardest to catch since it's not a compile or build error. So make sure you acknowledge purchases as you're using the new Playbuilding Library 3. I don't know if Nate has anything to add for that.
Not off the top of my head.
Regarding playbuilding, will there be an effort to make errors like this more recoverable or understandable? We are aware that some errors are very obscure and not exactly clear what went wrong. So we are trying to give more descriptive errors in future playbuilding libraries. So a lot of the releases that have gone through in Playbuilding Library 3, the dot releases have been an effort to make these errors more understandable. I'm not particularly aware of the specific errors. I don't know if Nate knows about the specific error. Yeah, sorry, but we are aware that some errors sometimes are very hard to decipher. So we are working on that. Will Playbearing Library eventually be part of Android X? Will it be open source that we can make contributions for fixes? I don't believe there are any current plans to make it part of Android X. Open source is something we talked about a little bit. I think our decision back then was that we were not going to invest time making it open source. But I think a good thing to do would be to open an issue in our open issue public issue tracker and mention exactly why you think that would be useful, because I also think that could be useful. But with more community support, it could be a better way to for us to dedicate our time to making it so that it can be open source and so we can accept open contributions. So feel free to open up an issue for this in the public issue tracker. Does that include ideas for features? For example, work man jobs that do SKU refresh and subscription verification. Yeah, for sure. The issue tracker is we look at it for bugs that come in, but also for what kind of features developers think would be useful as part of their app. So the issue tracker is open to anything: features, bugs, suggestions, ideas, literally anything. I don't know if we've ever thought about including Work Manager and Play Building Library, but I think that's a really cool idea. So it's definitely worth opening an issue for that, I think.
If there aren't any more questions, I would like to thank everyone for participating.